Okay, this is the bottom fabric. It is pinned on all four sides. There are no C-clamps on it yet. That's what we're going to do now. So trying to keep the frame in the same place and so it doesn't shift or move, especially the bottom end board and the top end board moving a lot, you're going to get the C-clamps ready to put on. Now this 2-inch C-clamp is how it's going to go. In this direction it's going to go on the boards. The twist part is going to go on top so we can undo it and twist it back as we need to and as we roll. So I'm going to put this under the board and it's going to go right on top of both boards, and I'm going to start twisting it, trying to keep these two boards in place without moving and shifting. So we'll twist this, and as you twist it, it will move. So you may need to just hold it in place and twist just until it's tight enough and it won't move. Now I'm going to do the other C-clamp at this other end so you can see how that's going to be done. Sometimes when you put these C-clamps on, the boards have a tendency to shift and move, but you just do the best you can. You have to maneuver and figure how works best for you to get these twisted on so that they're on the boards and they don't come off. Sometimes when you twist the bottom board, the C-clamp may shift to the outer edge of the bottom board. That's normal. You just have to twist it the best you can. So I'm going to put the other two boards on and we'll take it from there. Have all four sides pinned. There's one thing we need to do before we put the batting on, and that is we need to stretch the bottom fabric, the backing fabric, just a little bit to get it in place so the batting can go on top of this fabric and the top fabric can go on top of the batting. So what we're going to do is we're going to loosen the C-clamps on all four C-clamps. We're going to loosen one at a time and not take them off, but just leave them there and pull the side boards out, and the bottom and top boards will pull outward. So we're going to adjust it just a little bit so that the bottom backing fabric is a little bit tighter than just resting on the floor. So we'll just, it doesn't matter what direction you go, just as long as all four C-clamps get loosened and the fabric gets tightened just a little bit. You can see that the pins may pull just a little bit, but it's not overly tight, and that will do just fine. So I'll do the other two C-clamps and we'll adjust it like it's supposed to be so that the bottom backing fabric is tight enough that it won't sag. So I'm pulling the side boards, pulling the boards outward so that the backing fabric is tight enough. We'll do this last C-clamp and you'll notice the difference between when we started and when we're finished with the tightening. And that's about as tight as I want it. Okay, this fabric is just tight enough. I don't want all the wrinkles out, but just enough to not be sagging. Okay, now we're going to put the batting on. Now when we put the batting on, you're going to want to just lift it and shift it rather than tugging on it. You have to lift it and put it in place where you want it rather than tugging on it. It tends to stick to the bottom fabric anyway, so that's why it's helpful just to lift it and put it in place where you want it. So we're going to lift this up, adjust it. It may take a little bit to get this in place. And when we get this in place, we're not going to put as many pins on the batting as we do the top fabric and the bottom fabric. On the bottom, the batting, we're only going to tack it down just a few places on each side. So you only need just 2 pins on each one of these sides. Now when I put the pins in, I can feel through the batting where I've already put the pins for the backing fabric. So I'm not going to want to put my pins there. I'll stagger my pins so that they're not all in the same place. So I'm only going to put a pin on one side, on this side, and a pin on this side, about midway in that fabric strip. And I'll do this on all 4 sides, and the batting layer is now finished, and we can put the top fabric on it. Okay, this is the top fabric, and I'm going to put the top fabric on. Now, we have to be careful with the top fabric because shifting the top fabric will shift the batting and possibly the bottom layer, the backing layer of our quilt. Now, this is, remember, where the blue tape is, this is the direction where my, excuse me, where my quilt is going. So I'm going to carefully lift and place the top fabric on the quilt. I don't want to yank and pull, I just want to lift it as I go so that it gets placed on the quilt just right. So what I'm going to do after I get this laid out is I'm going to pin in the same way we did the pinning with the other layers. I'm going to pin this layer on. I'm going to start with the side and do this side, then I'm going to pin the other side. Then when I finish the 2 sides, I'll start at the bottom, pinning from the center, either left or right, and then doing both sides. And then I'm going to pin the top. So always go opposite of where you start. So I'll pin this in place, and then I'll show you what this is going to look like. I've attached the top fabric to all 4 sides, and now there's only a few more things to do. When you get all 3 layers attached, the next thing to do is do a final C-clamp adjusting. That means that we're going to loosen the C-clamps and pull the boards outward just a little bit to make the fabric just a little bit tighter so it's a little easier to quilt on. We don't want our fabric to be too loose when we quilt. We don't want it to be really, really tight. If you have the idea that you want this to be really tight so that you can bounce a coin on it, that's way too tight. But at the same time, we don't want it so that it's so loose that the fabric stitch or the stitches in the fabric are just way too loose. So we want to adjust the boards one last time before we begin hand quilting. What we do here, we will loosen the C-clamp just a little bit. You can even leave the C-clamp on, and you want to pull the bottom board just a little bit to you and pull the side board just a little bit outward. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. And this allows all 3 layers to be tightened just enough to be easier to work on. This side is done. Now I'm going to do this other side, this other corner. So I'll loosen the C-clamp and pull the boards out just a little to the bottom and to the left, and then I'll tighten it back. I'm going to do this on these other 2 corners, and then I'll show you how to roll the quilt once you've quilted your section that you're going to quilt.